It's time for another Out and About with Jamie Grout podcast, and this time I speak with local author Terri Leedom about her new book dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia, and also Lewy body syndrome. And I spoke with Terri about a year ago about another book she had, and it actually was a book that focused on kids dealing with grandparents who had dementia and Alzheimer's. And she talks about her personal journey with that. And I interject my personal journey on that with my sister, who recently passed away from Parkinson's disease, and had my own experiences with my sister who had some of that also. If you have a relative who has some Parkinson's disease, they might have some situations with dementia and Alzheimer's also. And my grandmother, who passed away in her 90s many years ago, I had some of that also. Many people deal with that, and I think you'll find some of Terri's experiences talking about that and talking about her new book very insightful. So hang on for that, and that's coming up in just a few moments. If you hear some background noise, the audio and video was filmed at the Gray Moon Public Market, which is newly open in downtown Newton. So that's what that background noise is. I found that to be a good experience, so you might want to check out the Gray Moon Public Market. A lot of people finding that to be very interesting also. But first, a word from our sponsors, and our newest sponsor on Out and About with Jamie Grout's podcast is Wesley Life Park Center. Pursue your joy at Park Center by offering living options across the continuum. Park Center provides vital, enriching environments for everyone. A community of healthy living focused on holistic health and well-being. Their programming enhances emotional, intellectual, and spiritual wellness and enables you to live a life that's healthier in every way. Park Center is at home in Newton, with many residents and team members having lived a life that's well lived. Now, to learn more about Park Center's different levels of living and to find out the lifestyle that's right for you, contact Lisa Zylstra at 641-791-5000. That's Lisa Zylstra at 641-791-5000. And I can give you testimony that it's a great place. I'm glad that when I got my sister moved from Portland, Oregon to Wesley Life Park Center when she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, that it was a great place for her to live her final years. She was diagnosed and to live about 5 years with Parkinson's disease, the rare form that she had. The doctor was not far off from that, and she started out in assisted living and finally went to the healthcare section, and they treated her great. They were absolutely fantastic. My sister could not have had any better care at Wesley Life Park Center, and basically her care continues even after her passing. I have joined a grief support group that meets once a month, and it's fantastic. When in her last year, she was in hospice care, and that was also through Wesley Life. They're just fantastic people at Wesley Life Park Center. So check them out. Get a hold of Lisa again at Wesley Life Park Center. 641-791-5000 is the number at Wesley Life. Another of our fine sponsors include Newton Clinic. Now, I don't know if you knew this or not, but February is Heart Month, and they're encouraging you to eat a balanced diet. Don't use nicotine products. Stay active with both cardio and resistance training, and limit alcohol and added sugars at Newton Clinic, where you can be treated like family. And we still are in winter, and even though we're going to have some warmer weather coming up, old man winter hasn't gotten rid of us yet. You know how it is. You know what they say, if you don't like the weather in Iowa, wait 5 minutes, it'll change. And I have a feeling we're in for some colder weather, and winter wellness is difficult this time of year, and they suggest you stay hydrated, get enough sleep, wash hands often, and stay active. Eat immuno-boosting foods and limit germ exposure too. All those good tips from Newton Clinic. Another fine sponsor, Advantage Credit Union.
Not all checking accounts are Olympic ready. Advantage Credit Union's Cha-Ching Rewards Checking is the gold standard that pays you 3% APY on balances up to $10,000. Simply do the things you're already doing at that other place and get paid up to $25 per month for it at ACU. Earn more on your everyday balance, plus no minimum balance or monthly service fees. Local money, local decisions, local service, and locally owned by you. Advantage Credit Union, where our members win every time.
APY's annual percentage yield restrictions apply. See credit union for details. Federally insured by the NCUA.
It's time for another Out and About with Jamie Grout podcast, and this time around we're talking with Terri Leedom, who I've interviewed previously about her book, My Silly Granny, A Story of Dementia, and it was focused on kids dealing with grandparents who have dementia or Alzheimer's, and this is a story that's very important to me. My grandmother Grout had Alzheimer's, and my sister, who recently passed away of Parkinson's disease, of course, dealt with a form of that too. And so she has another book out. Terri, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Jamie. I really appreciate you taking time to speak with me.
First of all, before we get into your new book about dealing with dementia, tell us about your connection to that.
Okay, so about 10 years ago, I started noticing some changes in my mom. I was living in Grinnell at the time, and she had an apartment in Ames. And she called me one night. She was having trouble getting her coffee pot to work. And I said, well, I'd take a look at it when I came to visit on the weekend. Well, when my uncle, her brother, came over to look at it, he said it was fine. Things went down from there. It wasn't the coffee pot. It was my mom forgetting how to make coffee, and then she couldn't get the microwave to run, she couldn't get the toaster oven to work, and just little things, more functioning things. Her memory loss was more about function rather than forgetting people and events, and she started having some hallucinations. So she would see cats and dogs sitting on her bed, she would see me sitting on her couch at times, as well as her brother. So we went to her family doctor, and she had the diagnosis of Lewy body dementia, which I call it the Heinz 57 of dementia. It has a little bit of everything, a little Alzheimer's, a little bit of what they call Parkinsonisms. So she had the tremors in her hand, she would shuffle when she walked, the motor movements, and then the hallucinations on top of that. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. I know, and I'm not going to give the person's name, but he was a lawyer in Newton, an attorney who had that Lewy body dementia, and another lawyer who worked with him would go to visit him when he was in a nursing home, and he'd say hi to him, and he'd say, well, we have to get to work now. And it was like they were back in the attorney's office, So it affects different people in different kinds of ways.
Very much.
Terri, tell us about your new book that you have.
Well, the name of the new book is called Play the Game. And it actually stemmed from, I was inspired to write it because of the My Silly Granny book. When I was giving talks at care centers and different organizations, I would talk about my mom's life and the things that we did and the ways that I helped her, struggles that she had, challenges that we had with her dementia. But there was always this phrase in my head that popped into my head. I laugh when I say, yes, I have voices in my head. And the voice was saying, play the game, Terri, just play the game. When things would get out of hand with my mom, it was a way for me to step into her world, to not be anxious, to not upset her, to not say things like, no, Mom, you didn't that delusion is just a delusion, it's not real, no puppy dogs came to visit you today, you can't do that. When she would see puppy dogs, I would say, oh, isn't that a cute little puppy dog, what's his name? I would engage with her delusion, whatever she was seeing or thinking or feeling, I would play the game. And as I'm telling these stories in care centers, people started asking me, have you written another book? Are you going to write another book? And I thought, you know what, maybe I need to do this. So this book, Play the Game, is for adult caregivers. It's to help them step into the world of the person they're caring for, whether it be in a care center, a spouse, a parent. A good example, one of the stories in the book is a cousin of mine who recently passed away. Her husband had Parkinson's disease, which morphed into a very severe form of dementia, and you know about that.
Sure.
And he was very delusional. He thought there were people living in the house that weren't supposed to be there, that they were running a business. He was very upset, and all my cousin could do was say, no, I promise you there's nobody here, which just made him more upset. Mm-hmm. And she told me time and time again, I wish I had known how to play the game. She could have sat with him and maybe for the moment said, Tom, we're going to get the people out of this house. I promise you they're going to be gone by the end of the day. Maybe it would have helped, maybe it wouldn't have, but she had wished that she had known about that aspect of dealing with dementia, and maybe it would have helped. So she has really, really encouraged me to write this book, and now it's here, and I'm really hoping that people can relate to it. I know I've gotten a lot of positive feedback so far from people that have read the story in there, and there's not just mine. I have a few other stories in there as well besides my mom's. But it's tangible. It's from a real person who I've dealt with it hands-on. The stories in here are other people that have dealt with it, and I hope that it will help other people find peace and another way to help the person that they love.
It seems like to me, when you're dealing with somebody with dementia or Alzheimer's, whatever you want to call it, patience is a big key.
Huge. Very much. And it's so easy to lose patience because it's not only frustrating for them, it's frustrating for the caregiver because we want to fix them. There are many times I broke down with my mom and said, I just want to fix you, Mom. I want to help. And it's easy to lose patience, but you have to stay there because your agitation will affect their agitation. And chances are, if you play the game one day and you give them peace and everything's fine, you may be doing the same thing the very next day because they don't always remember. With my mom, her Alzheimer's part was not real strong, so she didn't forget people so much as she forgot how to do things. But the thing about dementia is it affects everybody differently. As human beings, we are all uniquely different. And dementia is the same way. My half-brother, who was not related to my mother, he also had Lewy body dementia. He couldn't remember anybody or anything that was going on, but he knew how to function. And one time in the care center, they put an alarm pad underneath his feet because he would tend to get up and he was a fall risk. And they gave him a grabber tool so he could reach for things. He took the grabber tool and he unlocked the alarm. He pulled the alarm plug out. So he knew how to function. But he didn't remember his wife. He didn't remember me. So, yeah, and it was the same disease. But like you said, it affects everybody differently. And when you learn how to play the game, you may have to relearn it the very next day.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a couple examples on my side of things.
Oh, yes.
My sister thought my best friend was writing love letters to her.
Oh, my gosh.
Which he wasn't doing.
No.
And I just played along. I played the game.
Exactly.
And just, oh, okay. All right, fine. Yeah. And my grandmother, who lived into her 90s and had Alzheimer's, was living in a nursing home. And she was going into other rooms in her retirement facility and taking clothes and other items because she thought they belonged to her. And it got to the point where my parents had to mark her clothes to make sure that they were hers, you know.
Yes.
And so, as you say, it affects everybody differently in different ways.
Yes.
And so it gets to be very frustrating. So in your book, do you have a lot of different examples?
I do. The first part of the book basically tells the story of my mom from the very beginning of her early signs all the way up until her death, and decisions that we had to make from living independently to moving to a care center. Also, the part of the book that talks about her independent living, I talk about some of the struggles, and there are helpful hints after a lot of them. So like with hallucinations, I have some helpful suggestions of how to deal with that. Phone issues. She had a real hard time distinguishing between her cell phone and her TV remote. A lot of times she would try to answer the phone by picking up the remote, or she'd turn the TV on with her phone. So I have a list of helpful hints of what you can do. Get a flip phone. That's what we did for my mom. Get a phone with great big numbers on it. I put blue vinyl tape on the outside of the phone so it was different looking. So there's helpful hints all through that whole section on different things.
How did it come to the point, Terri, with you that you decided to take her from her house, independent living, into the nursing home?
It got to the point where I was coming to stay with her every single weekend. And I realized at one point she was having a real difficult time with her bathroom duties, getting up in the middle of the night and not being able to find the toilet. And first, she didn't really have any finances set in place for a care center, so we had to fill out the paperwork to get her on Medicaid. And for a while, we had an aide coming in during the week, once or twice a week, to help her with cleaning and things. But it was a process of trying to get her lined up with a care center, get the paperwork done. I just knew there'd come a time when there were so many things that were wrong, and I just knew she couldn't be there alone. But the last couple of months were really, really difficult because I knew she shouldn't be there, and I couldn't get her in someplace just yet. And so I'd be there on the weekends, and her brother, my Uncle Dave, would come over every day and take her to lunch and be with her. But at nighttime scared me. I would go home Sunday night just crying, knowing, please God, help her stay safe.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what was going to happen. And as it was, she was safe. The first care center that we went to, she was not safe. She fell 5 times the first month, so we yanked her out of that. In fact, the place isn't even open anymore. And so then we moved her to another place in Grinnell, and they were wonderful. She was in 2 different care centers there. One had a memory unit, and it was wonderful. But it's a hard decision to make.
Well, something that, and again, if you don't mind me sharing, because we want to talk about your book, but
absolutely.
One thing that was very frustrating for me when my sister was diagnosed for Parkinson's was that she was out in Portland, Oregon, and there wasn't a lot that I could do. A true blessing and a lucky thing for me is she had neighbors across the street from her who basically took care of her. Now, I hired visiting angels to take care of her, to clean up the house and go to the grocery store for her and maybe cook some meals for her, and they would come to her house to take care of her, and they couldn't find her. Well, it turns out she'd be across the street, and the neighbors would be taking care of her, and they'd bathe her, and they took good care of her, which was very nice. But it ran up the bill when sometimes it wasn't really needed. But it was very nice because my sister was so charming, and everybody just absolutely loved her. When I finally got out to Portland, and I was out there for a couple weeks, I got her house sold, and I did eventually get her back to Newton just before COVID. They were working on a street right next to her house. And there are people, when you're working on a street and they have construction going on, there's the stop and slow signs, and people take care of that. And the lady standing out there was at the intersection, and my sister's house was right by an intersection, and she said, "Are you her brother by any chance?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, Deborah said her brother was coming." And I said, "Well, great." And she said, "Well, I'm glad you're here, because she would drive by her house several times because she didn't know which house was hers." Aww. And it was very sad. Yeah. She did, luckily enough, have the wherewithal to get herself in a cab and take herself to a lawyer's office so I would be able to have power of attorney over her.
Good.
And when I got there, Terry, I went through a bunch of her papers because I had to get her paperwork for the Postal Service, for her retirement, for her Social Security and everything. And luckily enough, she again had the wherewithal to get a notebook and write everything down. Good. Because she knew she was slipping. We had these conversations, and she knew she was slipping. And when I got her house sold, and what's that 1-800-TAKE-JUNK or something like that place, we got a lot of her stuff taken care of and got out of the house, and she was totally cool with it. And it worked out very good. And once we got her into Park Center, everybody loved her there, and it all turned out real good. And now that she's passed, still in hospice care, people have been great. I've joined a grief support group, which has been fantastic. But and if you've lost somebody due to Alzheimer's and dementia, I do suggest joining a grief support group. Everybody deals with grief separately in their own way, but if you can find other people to hold on to and chat with that have gone through this, I suggest it highly.
That's so important. Well, and it is really difficult, to your point, when you're not in the same proximity as your person, you have to rely on what other people are telling you. And so excuse me, for me, my eye-opener was on the weekends when I would come and stay with my mom, and I could see all these little things. And my uncle, who would come to visit her, it took him a little bit to get on the bandwagon, because a lot of times she acted perfectly normal. And what I found with Lewy body dementia is a term I just learned when I was researching information for my book. There's a term called shifting. They can be perfectly fine 1 minute, normal conversation, everything, and then something will trigger and they'll flip. My uncle went out to dinner one time with my mom, and he dropped her off at Walmart because she needed some supplies, and he went to park the car, and when he came back to find her, he couldn't find her. She had wandered off, and he found her eventually at the back of the store, totally confused, not knowing what was going on.
Yeah.
She had just totally shifted from normal to not.
Yeah.
And so then I started watching some of these things, and when I'd come on the weekends and I'd see how difficult it was for her to button her shirts or to zip her coat, it's like, okay, we need to do something different.
Right.
And then with the bathroom deals, like I said, I started putting in motion what needed to be done. I thought it was early enough, but by the time we were ready to move her, it was just almost a disaster.
Right.
I encourage people, don't wait till the last minute.
Yeah.
Get in there early and get your person, or get, like with your sister, she had neighbors that helped out,
Yes.
which was fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt very lucky about that. And then when we came back to Newton, when my sister was having problems flying back, we had to connect in Las Vegas. And she went to the bathroom, and I sat back. It wasn't very far from where we were connecting from the area in the airport, and I thought she'd be okay.
Yeah.
And she didn't come back, and didn't come back, and didn't come back. Well, she got lost. And luckily, after a while, I went to find her, and I finally found her. But she,
Yeah.
I mean, you know how it is. I mean, you went through it yourself.
You do. And we that don't have the dementia, we kind of live in a little world of denial, because we think, oh, maybe it's just part of aging. Maybe we don't want the people we love to go down that road.
Right.
And so that's why I encourage people, try to be aware of it early if you can. Actually, in my book, I've got a chapter of a checklist. It's kind of a compilation that I put together. You can go to the Alzheimer's website or Lewy body dementia. Many dementia sites out there have a checklist of symptoms that you can keep an eye on. So my checklist is a little bit of everything, and some things that I found were helpful for me. So people can, use that as a helpful guide as well.
Well, that is fantastic, Terri. I'm glad you've written another book about this. It's very helpful. How can people get their hands on this book anyway?
My website is the best place to get it, Terri Leedom, all one word, .com. And if you go down and find the icon, the picture of my book, and you can press the buy button, and it'll take you right through. There's several different payment options, and I will get a notification that you want a book, and I will ship it out to you.
Okay, now is My Silly Granny, the story of dementia, that's focused, targeted toward kids,
Yes.
dealing with grandparents, is that still available also?
Oh, absolutely. I just placed my second order this last fall, so
Okay.
I've sold over 1,000 books so far, and it's, besides being helpful just to kids, I have discovered that it's a good conversation starter in families. As I mentioned before, people live in denial. Nobody wants to get that diagnosis. And a friend of mine, when her mother had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, they were still living at home, her and her husband. They didn't want to talk about it, but when my friend went to visit for a weekend with her family, their young son, who was probably 6 or 7, sat down and he read My Silly Granny to Grandpa. And Grandpa hollered at his wife and he said, honey, get in here. You need to hear this story because it sounds like us. And it opened up a conversation in that family to talk about what was going on. So
Well,
yes,
let me bring up something else too, because my nephew, Greg Woods, who's from Newton.
Oh, I know Greg.
Okay, good.
Yes, I do.
Great guy, and
Yes.
he works with Alzheimer's and dementia, and there are medications right now. You've got to get to the doctor, and Medicare will test you. You've got to have a beginning point to find out. In fact, I'll be honest, I'm 67, and they tested me, and they posed some questions of me, and then they asked me like a minute later if I remembered something, and I totally forgot something, so I was freaking out a little bit. But they said, "Don't worry about it. That doesn't mean you have anything right now." But they need a base point to try to figure some of these things out, and they can test you every time you go to the doctor every year to see how you're doing. And so that's I think it's absolutely free, and it's on Medicare. And there are medications right now that they think that can slow down Alzheimer's and dementia. But you can check with DHS, with the state of Iowa, and go to their website or give them a call if you want to find out more information. And I know that through Greg. And he's a great spokesperson for Alzheimer's and dementia too. So there's a lot of resources out there, Terry, and you know all about that.
Well, and I'll put a plug in for that. So Greg contacted me probably 2 years ago, I think. And the department there up at the State House, the Department of Health and Human Services, they purchased 60 of my Silly Granny books in paperback form. What they did was they put together memory kits for libraries. And so I'm not sure which libraries have them, but there are 60 libraries in the state of Iowa that have these memory kits, all kinds of activities, brain activities. Caregivers can come and check these kits out. And so my Silly Granny is in some of these kits. So I was very excited about that. It's out there. It's helping. I've gotten a lot of good feedback from my Silly Granny. So far, I have gotten a lot of good feedback back from Play the Game as well. It doesn't launch to the public until March 24th. But I have books on hand, and I can sell my books before that date. So that's the best place to get them.
Well, I will let Greg Woods know that you have a new book coming out, because I'm sure he'll want to know about that. He is into anything dealing with Alzheimer's, dementia, Lewy body, all that stuff.
So he actually helped me a little bit. There's the second chapter in here is just a talk about dementia. Just very briefly. He's the expert, so I kind of ran that chapter by him to make sure I was on the right page and not giving false information. But he's a good guy. He's doing wonderful things. And like you said, there are so many resources. In the back of my book, I have a listing of resources where people can go. And I encourage people, with my book, I have helpful hints, things that have helped me. I have the checklist. I did research of some of the information. I talk about that test, the memory test in the beginning that you talked about. It is a point system, so as long as you get more than 24 points, between 24 and 30, you're still good. Mom's was 21.
Apparently I passed.
You passed. I've not had my baseline test yet, but it is a good idea to get a baseline. Even if you don't think you're having an issue when we get up to a certain age, when you go in for your yearly physical, they can give you that test so easily, and then you have a baseline for anything else. Me personally, I've started my own personal little notebook because I notice when I slip up on things. And it's hard to know where that line is between what's normal and what's a problem. So, I encourage people to stay on top of it. Keep in touch with your families, and use the checklist, take the test, get your baseline, and keep track of yourself, keep track of your loved ones.
Well, thanks for doing all you do, dealing with these memory issues, dementia, Alzheimer's, Lewy body, and your own personal experiences too, Terry, and sharing the two books. The newest one that's coming out, what's the date, in March?
March 24th. It's available online, but Amazon takes a lot of profits. You can order it there, but you know what? Go to my website.
And that website again?
TerriLeedom.com.
And also My Silly Granny, the story of dementia, by Terri Leedom, our interview guest.
Thank you.
That's going to wrap it up for this edition of Out and About with Jamie Grout. Make sure you check the video on outandaboutwithjamiegrout.com and also on my YouTube channel. Other fine sponsors include Lynette Baker, Halo Branded Solutions, Westside Java Coffee Bar, and the Maid Ride in downtown Newton, serving breakfast 7 days a week. Until next time, Grout is out. See ya.